Hello everyone, welcome to this year's first tutorial. In this tutorial, we will try to recreate the image on the left, and the image you see on the right is what we are gonna get at the very end. So I hope you enjoy and learn new things. Let's start. First thing I'm gonna do is to change the layout to model, and I have my pure ref over here. Then I will turn off work plane and set frames. I will start with the head. So let's zoom. I will create a cube. By the way, I will enable lines so we can see the polygons. So the first thing I'm going to do is to increase the segments of the cube. Z and X, not Y. We will not need this for now. No, I will make this cube editable. Press C, switch to polygon mode, press 0 to select rectangle selection, select these, then delete. After that, I will switch to points mode and select these points. I will leave one point between them. That's all. Now, all I need to do, move them up like this, get this shape. But to see the exact result, I need a subdivision surface. Press Alt and at the subdivision surface, go back to cube and move these points more or less. Okay, this is looking good, but it's not gonna be enough. I will need more supporting edges. So right click, select loop cut, press shift, add 1. I will increase that number to 2. Then I will switch to edge mode, press E, double click on these edges, then switch to scale mode and scale them slightly. Perfect. Maybe we can lower these to make the top part rounder. Then I believe that I should select these corner edges so that I can enable subdivision surface and scale them to get a more rounder shape. But if you notice that when I do that, the y-axis will be also affected, but I don't want that, so I will lock the y and scale it one more time. Alright, looking good. Now we will need thickness, so I will switch to polygon mode, select them all, right click, extrude, turn on caps. Something like that should be enough. Press Q to enable subdivision surface. We will need supporting edges, loop cut here and here. I believe this number of polygons will not be enough, so I will increase that subdivision editor to 3, maybe renderer as well. Perfect. Now I will create a mocap material. Double click. For the color, I'm gonna pick it up from the pure ref. Let's select here. Reflectance, turn off that, add a GGX, and change Fresnel to the electric. And assign that to our cube. Sometimes it is good to have these kind of materials to check the shape. And everything is looking good. Maybe we can select these points and move them down, and some small scale. Okay, I think this is gonna be enough for the head. Now we can move on to the legs. For the legs, I will use splines. For that, I will turn that off and turn off shading by pressing N and Q. Let's go to the front view, select spline tool. And let's see, I'm gonna start from here and add these 2 points. This should be enough, but we will check this later anyway, so it's not that important. Now I will need a profile. I'm gonna create a circle, scale it. Then I will press Alt, select sweep, then put the spline under the sweep. First thing, of course, we need to scale this circle a lot. Something like that. I will enable my lines one more time. By the way, you can use N and B shortcut. Then you can press N and A to go back to the normal. First thing, go to circle and lower these numbers to, let's say, 2 or 1. And go to spline, change its type to uniform as well as the circle. And let's say 8 maybe. Okay, 4 is looking good. Now I will go to sweep, go to caps, and increase the end size. Maybe one more segment for the ends. Now, if I select my sweep, you can see that its center axis right in the center of my world. So I can use easily cloners. So press Alt, select cloner. I will change the type though to radial. I will lower my radius to 0 and increase my count. Let's try to count how many we have over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's over 10. Let's make it 10. Now I will go to my spline. In points mode, select them all, Ctrl A, and move them right here. I will go back to the circle and scale it. Go back to spline, select them all. I mean the points of the spline. Ctrl A, press T. Then I'm gonna change my y-axis to 100% so I can scale them from the top. Okay, I will unselect that point and play with that. Can scale it, move it, but I believe this is gonna be enough for the moment. Now I want to work on the eyes and the mouth. It's gonna be really easy. Just create a disk, change the orientation to Z and move it over here. Scale it. Then I'm gonna put the symmetry over that. Press Alt, select symmetry. Then go back to disk and move it on the X. Scale it. So this should be enough. Then I'm gonna move it back. Then make it editable. Press C. Switch to polygon mode. Select them all. Ctrl A. Right click. Extrude. Make sure that the caps option is on and extrude them. Perfect. Then I'm gonna split these polygons. Then I'm gonna scale them, but we should reset the y-axis to 0. Scale them, but the y is locked, so I'm gonna unlock that. Scale it one more time. Press D to extrude one more time. Perfect. But you will see that you will not see the second object on the other side because these two needs to be a single group. Select them all, press Alt and G. Now the symmetry should work. So I'm gonna put a subdivision surface over that symmetry. That means that I need to add my supporting edges to these disks. One here and one here. And this one. I cannot see the back, so I will turn on solo. Add that supporting edge. And I believe this should be enough. I can turn that off. Now the mount is gonna be really easy. Just add a cube. Scale it. Switch to model mode. You can use these points to scale the cube. Okay, this is gonna be enough. Now I'm gonna make it editable. Press C, switch to edge mode, select loop cut, then press shift, add this loop cut. Then I'm gonna move these edges down to make a kind of smile face. Add a subdivision surface over that cube, which means we will need supporting edges like here and here and here. Now I will switch to polygon mode, select them all by pressing Ctrl A. Then I'm gonna scale these. Small adjustments on that spline. And now I believe we can model the last piece, which will be this kind of helmet thing. This is gonna be really easy as well. Just create a cube, make it editable, click the bottom polygon, the subdivision surface over that, then select them all and scale them. I will need some supporting edges to make the shape more angular, like one to the center and one over here. Then let's say here, maybe this is too much over here. I will switch to edge mode, select the bottom edges and scale them down. I'm gonna put these over here. It looks like this should be slightly bigger, so select this, then grow the selection by pressing U and Y. Scale them more. I will press N and G to see the inside. Okay, this is gonna be enough for the moment. I can press N and B. I believe we missed the last part. I mean the ring over the top. To do that, let's go back to that object, turn the subdivision surface off. I'm gonna select these top polygons, split these, scale them. Then I'm gonna make an inset. Alright, something like that. Then delete. Select them all, move them up slightly, select extrude. So something is going on. Let's see. I'm gonna double click these. No, I cannot delete them. So okay, should have deleted the middle ones. Select this back, extrude. This should be enough. I should make these two objects into a single group. Alt and G, press Q. Some supporting edges on this one, like here, here, and inside. Perfect. So with this last move, we are done with the modeling phase. But I will do some little adjustments while we render. But for now, it's gonna be enough. I will hide the heads for the moment. And if you have noticed, we have lots of subdivision surface, like 4, which we don't need that much. So let's try to ungroup these and delete the subdivision surfaces. Because I will make a single one to manage them all. All I need to do, select all these objects and make them a single group. Press Alt and G and put it under the subdivision surface. I'm gonna rename that to Octo. Now I'm gonna check the normals, select the first object, and it's good to rename this ring. Polygon mode, select them all. It looks like it's flipped, right click and select reverse normals. This is the head. Select them all. I will use the shortcuts U and R. Then is sweep, so we don't need to do that. This one, select them all, U and R. This one is okay, and the head one is looking good. I'm gonna go back and select that spline. Switch to points mode. If you can't see the spline, you can press N and G. I'm gonna select that one. That point looks like over here. Also that these legs should be thicker, I believe. Something like that. Other than that, we are good to go, except that I don't think we need that now, so I'm gonna select these, move them up over here, delete that one, this one. I'm gonna rename that so mount, eyes, and legs. Perfect. Now I will start to work on the scene arrangement. Let's take a wider look. Or reference image. Obviously, we will need a cloner. Select subdivision surface. Press Alt, select cloner. First thing first, I will change to multi-instance. Then we will need more on the Y. Let's increase that. They are touching each other, so I need to make a distance between them. Alright, now I need to randomize these characters. To do that, select cloner, go to effectors and select random effector. Go to parameters and play with these numbers. So whatever I do, these are gonna touch each other. Like this one. To prevent that, I will go back to cloner and add a new effector, and it's gonna be push apart. Select that and increase the reduce. Let's check that. Alright, everything looks good. I will go back to my random and play with the strength of the vector. So you can see that whatever I do, they are not gonna touch each other. Now I will go back to parameters of my random effector and add rotations. This one. Perfect. I will go back to cloner object and increase the distance between them. So this is what we get, but it doesn't have to be like that. We can go to random and change the seed to get a different cloners. Like this one, but I will need to make some changes, especially on the rotation, because my main focus will be on that, and I am trying to get the same rotation. By the way, it's not possible to get the same arrangement just like our reference images. To do that, you need to make the cloner object editable, like pressing C. Then this is gonna create a bunch of instances, so it's not what we want. So go back to cloner and change it to instance, make it editable. It's gonna create a bunch of objects. Now we can select this, like for example this one, and rotate it to get the same positions and rotations. But I'm not gonna do that. Let's go back to multi-instance. While we have this view, I'm gonna create a camera, look through that. I'm gonna change my focal length to, let's say, 75. Go back. By the way, it's time to change our aspect ratio to something similar to that. I'm gonna set my width to 1000, and for the height, let's try 1500. It's too much. By the way, I should bring back safe frames. So 1500 looks too wide. Let's try 1200. Okay, this is looking good. I'm gonna stop right here because we need to do another thing. If you look at the image, we see that there are two types of octopus. One with the legs open and one with the legs closed. To do that, I will duplicate my first subdivision surface and let's rename that to open. Press Ctrl, duplicate that, but make sure that it's in the cloner group. It's gonna be renamed to closed. Then go to legs, select the spline. I can turn off the camera, and I'm gonna change the shape of this spline. I'm gonna move this point over here, then rotate that point. Looks like these are like that, maybe longer than that. All right, let's look through our camera, and everything is looking good. As I said, you can play with these numbers. Now we can switch to render part. I will switch back to standard layout. Go to Octane, open up live viewer window. I'm gonna lock it over here. Then hit enter. I will delete that material. Open up options. As always, I change my direct lighting to pet tracing, lower these numbers. We don't need that much for the moment. We can lock the view. Now we can work on the light stuff. First thing, I will add an HDRI environment. Click here, select HDRI. I'm gonna select that HDRI. It's let me show you. So this is basically a studio HDRI. The gamma is wrong on this one, but I think you got the idea. And another HDRI environment, but this is gonna be just for the background. So change it to visible environment. Background. Let's play with that to get a similar light. So you can see that we see a small shadow on here, which means that the light should be on the left. I'll go back to my background, change it to color. It's gonna automatically create an RGB spectrum. Click on that. Then I'm gonna select a color from the reference image, just like that. This is for me to be saturated. I'm gonna lower that and make it darker. But we're gonna play with this later. Now I will go to my camera, right click, select add an Octane camera tag. Enable camera imager. First thing I always do, increase the highlight compression. Then of course depth of field. I'm gonna increase my aperture, let's say 15, then click here, select focus point. I think this is gonna be enough for the moment. Now we need to work on the materials. Go to materials, create and universal material. Double click on that. Also, I'm gonna assign that material to my objects like head and legs. Same on that group. Now open up Node editor, close that. First thing, I will change my albedo to black and my transmission to fully up, because I'm gonna try to use some subsurface scattering. Now we can go to medium and click absorption. We will need some color information, so look for RGB spectrum. This color should be similar to that color, some bluish color. Link that to absorption. Select the absorption node. I'm gonna play with the density. 100 will be probably too much, so lower it to 10. Another thing that I should change is to transmission type. I'm gonna change it to diffuse. Now we start to see the effect, but still I believe the density is too high, so I'm gonna lower it to 1. No, this is too much. Yes, 5 looks okay, but I still don't get the effects I want, just like the or reference image. Let's try to fix that with another light, which is an area light. Create that. I'm gonna close that up for the moment and switch to top view. Change my camera to perspective. Press N and A. So this light should be over here, should face our octopus. Then I'm gonna make it real big. And a bit further. Go back to our camera settings and increase the highlight compression. Can lower exposure. You can see from the highlight we got something similar to our reference image. Let's go back to our HDRI and try to lower the power. I will open up my material one more time. Another thing I should add is the roughness, like 0.1. Actually, I'm gonna go back to that spectrum and switch it back to this first color we have picked. I'm gonna play with that later. Now let's create some simple materials for the eyes and the mount. Materials, create diffuse materials will be enough. I'm gonna change my color to black, but not fully, and assign that to mount. And let's see the first discs of the symmetries, and another one for the rings and for the eyes. Materials, create, use, and of course the ring is not gonna be enough, because you can see that this material has some kind of an emitter. Let's add black body emission. It's gonna be too much, of course. I'm gonna lower it to 25, or we can enable surface brightness. Okay, not bad. I can turn that off. Now I'm gonna unhide the heads. Double alt click on the light. I will create a specular material. Assign that to the heads. We will need to make some adjustments on the material, but before that, I forgot to add some thickness to our head. So I'm gonna stop the render. Select the heads. Switch to polygon mode. Press S to focus on these polygons. Select them all, Ctrl A, and extrude them. Make sure that the caps option is on. Okay, this is looking good. I will enable render. Alright, we got the thickness, but the shape is a little off. So let's see if I select these top 2 points and move them up. Yeah, not bad. Then the last is bottom points, and I'm gonna move them up. I will open up my glass material. I'm gonna change some stuff, especially these fake shadows. You can see that we have some kind of shadows in my head. If I turn that on, it's not gonna cast that much shadow, which is great. Then you see that we have some kind of roughness. So let's try 0.01, maybe 2. Another thing that this emission material should be more intense. So let's make it 100. Okay, much better. Then we have another head on the other object. This one, I'm gonna just delete it and copy that one, press Ctrl and move it over here. I will turn on and off the cloner object to see the result. So all these subsurface stuff and this frosted glass will increase the render time a lot. You can see it from the bottom. So I will go to my camera tag and enable denoiser. I'm gonna wait until my render is done. Alright, it's done. It took 1.5 minutes. So if I click denoiser, you can see the effect, which is great. Time I'm gonna play with the post-processing. It's obvious that we have some bloom on this one, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Layer power. A lot of vignetting. Actually, it is good to do this kind of stuff in post, like in Photoshop, After Effects, or Fusion. But I'm gonna try to do this in Cinema 4D. I will go back to background and increase the color, not that much. Also, more saturation. Now let's try to create this particle effect. It's gonna be really easy. I will create a sphere. Actually, let's turn that off and switch to our camera view and hide the visibility of that light. And doesn't need that much segments. It will be enough. Press Alt, add a cloner. As I did before, I'm gonna use grid mode. We will need more counts, like 8, 10. Select the cloner, add a random effector. Play with these numbers. And the most important one will be the scale. Enable that, also enable uniform scale. And play with that. It shouldn't be too much. I mean the sizes of the spheres. I'm gonna scale these open up Material Manager, and I'm gonna create a simple diffuse material for that. And for the color, let's stick with the bluish color. Assign that to the sapphire and hit render. I'm gonna stop because these are still too big, I believe. Scale these more, and I'm gonna set the scale to 0.5 or something like that. Also, before hitting render, I will go to that glass material and increase my roughness to 0.2. Alright, the render is done. It took 1.5 minutes as before. Considering the materials and the shapes, I think it's a good time. Now let's check the noised one, which is looking great. Now let's try to make operation. Well, not the greatest thing. Of course, the original one is a lot better, but we got a really close result if you play with the materials more. Also, the arrangements of the older elements, I believe we will get a better result, but for the time given, we did a really good job, and I believe I'm gonna stop right here. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next tutorials. Bye.